Alright, this video is going to help you take a look at number 2 for activity 4.2 in the modeling. And one of the aspects that we will take a look at will be looking at a change of units. And so one of the aspects we'll be seeing is that we'll be using a different template. And this could be something that really could trip students up as you look at there. So all dimensions on this sketch are going to be in millimeters. And we're going to take a look at an inventor and how to do that. One of the aspects I would take a look at is going through this new panel here. Now, in the standard IPT template, generally, with Autodesk Inventor, this is going to be in English units, inches. If you click over here under templates, click on metric, there will be a standard millimeter template that shows up there as well. So where the default units are all in metric units. So, standard millimeter IPT, say create. And then say start 2D sketch. I always choose the XY plane for the most part, and we can start looking at some of these. So I'm going to be looking at the little bit more efficient method of going around and creating the overall front profile of this sketch and then extruding it and then looking at putting in some of the other features. So here we have a 60 millimeter wide part by 40 millimeters tall. And I'm going to look at kind of getting that basic shape in there. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool, again basing it off of the origin, making sure to have that constraint. I'm going to zoom out here, draw my shape. I can dimension. I'm going to be at 60 millimeters, and on the height 40. Now, one of the aspects I'll look at as far as creating this shape, I'm going to use the line tool. And roughly about where that little square notch would be kind of cut out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that in there. And looking at it, it's going to be 15 kind of cut down from the top, and then about 10 millimeters away from the edge, and then about 25 from the opposite edge. So putting in some of these dimensions, one thing I'll want to do for sure is I'm going to use this trim tool. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim away. You'll notice that you'll get little dash lines of what's going to be trimmed. So if I click there, it's going to trim this away, and then it gives me my shape. So from here to here, it's going to be 10 millimeters. From the height, I may have to click on this line, and one of the lines referring to the height, 15. Now, here's what may happen. This is a good example of what may little bit of what they call massaging the sketch. So here this is going to be 25. So just double checking my dimensions. Yep, 25 there. Now in this case these two lines are not aligned together anymore, which sometimes can happen when you trim a sketch. I'm going to use a geometric constraint. So the one I'm going to end up utilizing is the collinear constraint. So if I click on collinear, choose this line and choose this line, it will now set those on the same line or on the same particular path, so that way they are in line together. And you'll notice this line turned purple again, indicating that it is fully constrained. As far as this goes, that finishes out the front profile of the sketch. The only thing we're going to have to do is extrude and then cut this square hole through the part. So finish the sketch. The one thing that'll happen is, for some reason in this metric template, you will see that when you click on home, it will kind of lay this down. You'll see your front face will face upward. So one way to fix that is I'm going to click on the front and kind of rotate it around like this, and then I'm going to click on this corner. Now to change this, I'm going to click on the little arrow next to the view cube, say set current view as home, and say fit to view. So now when I click on the home button, if I go and if I move off of this sketch at all, it'll now show up in the correct orientation that you're probably used to with the inch template. So still never have figured out why that happens, but in the metric template, it's one of the aspects that, one of the kind of the features you have to deal with. 30 millimeters on the extrusion depth. Change that and say OK. And then we're going to end up looking at starting a 2D sketch on the side. Looking at the square notch, about 5 millimeters from the bottom, and then looks like 3 from the edge. So me personally, I always like to do, there's two types of dimensions to work with. There are location dimensions, and there are size dimensions. So the ones we're putting in right now are going to be location dimensions. We're just locating where this is going to be, and then I like to go in and put in the size dimensions. So 15 by 10, so 15 wide by 10 tall, and then go ahead and say finish sketch. And then in this one, since one of the biggest questions students will ask, does this notch go all the way through? If typically if there's not a specified depth for a hole or for a part that's going to be cut through, you would always assume that it's going to be all the way through the part. So extrude, choose the square notch, say cut, and instead of a certain distance, we could say hit the little drop down on distance, say all, cuts all the way through the part, say OK, and there's our finished part for activity 4.2 number 2.